Alright, how's it going, guys? I'm an avid herpetologist. Welcome back to the channel. I'm back with another deck profile. It is another new format with BT14 having released about a week or two ago, which means it is time again for another Machinedramon deck profile update. So I'm going to be going over my newest build for my Machinedramon list. Of course, this is still my primary deck that I use during events. We're going to go over some of the new cards that we've gotten. Since my last profile, we've actually had 3 different product releases with the new structure decks, RB1 and now BT14. So there's quite a few things to talk about with big changes to the meta, as well as new cards that we're able to use in our Machinedramon list. So let's go ahead and get into it. Starting, of course, with our 4 eggs, I am still on 4 copies of Hopmon. Now, the big reason for this is, as I mentioned in previous deck profiles, the extra 1000 DP has been relevant in quite a few different matchups. Now, especially with 13,000 DP Digimon running around even more than before, making sure that our Machinedramon are at least able to clash or trade with 12,000 or 13,000 DP Digimon is going to be, of course, very helpful. And it also helps for turning on one of our rookies that I am still playing. We'll get to that in a moment. So, yep, we are going to be playing our 4 copies of Hopmon. Alright, moving into our rookies, we are playing 2 copies of EX1 Hagurumon. Now, this is down from the usual 4 copies that I've been playing the last format or 2. Hagurumon is still fantastic as a, of course, card filtering engine and a consistency tool. However, we have so many rookies competing for valuable space at this point that I have decided to cut Hagurumon down in this particular list just to make room for some other valuable cards. And one of those, of course, is going to be the brand new card Espimon from RB1. Now, Espimon is 3 to play, 2000 DP, has an opponent's turn effect while there is a Tamer in play to gain 2000 DP. I have not been playing Gigadramon for quite a while in my decks, and that is because I'm not a huge fan of level 5s that are not super proactive on my own turn. However, Espimon kind of takes that inheritable, that plus 2000 that Gigadramon has, and instead of being one of my valuable level 5 inheritables, turns it into a rookie, which is a lot better for a couple of reasons. But one of the big ones that I don't think should be underestimated is it actually boosts our level 4s. I'm actually playing quite a few blocker level 4s in this list, so being able to make them 2000 DP bigger as well is actually extremely helpful, especially since we are going to be in a much more aggressive meta, which is going to have a lot more low-to-the-ground decks, pushing early aggression and smaller bodies. Now, my big fora for this list is still going to be 4 copies of the promo Sunarizamon. This card is excellent alongside Hopmon. While in play, all of your black Digimon with 13,000 DP or more have piercing, which is of course super nice. And its inheritable is, while this Digimon is black and has 13,000 DP or more, it gets an extra security check. So Sunarizamon in tandem with our Hopmons is going to make sure that our EX3 Chaosdramons are able to reach 13,000 DP super consistently, having access to that extra security check. It's a very aggressive rookie, probably one of the most aggressive rookies this deck is able to play, so I am still opting to run 4 of it, and honestly, I haven't really regretted it thus far. I think it's still one of the best rookies available. Now, I'm not playing any copies of Guardromon, just because I wanted to keep a lot of my rookies and champions as machines and cyborgs for those synergies, things with Hagurumon and Guardromon from EX1. But the one rookie that I am choosing to run here is going to be 4 copies of Sunarizamon. I'm opting for that aggression over the extra memory gain. Now, moving on into our champions, I am going to be playing 3 copies of HoverEspimon from RB1. Now, this card has kind of been growing on me. I didn't really value this card super highly when it first came out, but it's definitely kind of overperformed in my eyes. On play and when digivolving, you can reveal the top card of your opponent's security stack. If that card is a Digimon, you'll gain a memory. If it is not a Digimon, you'll instead draw a card. On all turns, as long as there is a Tamer in play on either side of the field, this Digimon also has blocker and cannot be deleted by card effects. Now, as I mentioned, we are in a very aggressive meta now, with a lot of very low-to-the-ground bodies, especially early on in the game. There's going to be a lot of decks pushing rookies out to get some early aggression for combo turns later on. The top 3 decks right now, I think we can all agree, are most likely going to be D-Brigade, Fenrirlugomon, and Bloomlord. And outside of Bloomlord, the other 2 are going to be pushing a lot of early cards out to try to get some early security checks. Now, however, Espimon helps a lot with that without being vulnerable like other blockers would be, ideally, since it can't be deleted by those card effects as long as you have your Tamer. It's also able to attack, which gives it another edge over Guardromon. Now, unfortunately, it does not have an inheritable, which is a little bit of a downside, but I actually think the value of HoverEspimon in play is definitely a lot higher than and I'm sure some other players have been giving it credit for, but I do highly recommend trying him out. Like I said, he has been doing fantastic for me. Now, we are still playing 3 copies of Guardromon from EX1, still one of the generically good support cards the deck has access to. I don't think I would ever go below 3 with this guy just because his inheritable is just that powerful. He's still a blocker, which is, again, very helpful for early game with a lot of these more aggressive decks. And we are still playing 2 copies of Mercurymon, so we can still go hybrid for game. Now, my particular list, I am back on Attack of the Heavy Mobile Digimon after a few sets off of it. I do think it is still a fantastic card. My particular list is starting to pivot back more in that direction. So between the 2 copies of Attack of the Heavy Mobile and 2 copies of Mercurymon, we're going to have lots of close power with this deck. We're going to be able to ideally smash through security very, very quickly thanks to our aggressive inheritables, and then be able to, swing for game with our Mercurymons and other options to blitz off of empty boards. So 2 copies of Mercurymon is what I'm currently opting for. Now, moving on to our level 5s, not too much has changed, but we'll talk about some of the cards that are going to be more meta-relevant. We're still playing our 2 copies of Andromon from EX1, our single copy of MetalTyrannomon from EX1, and our single copy of MetalMamemon from EX1. I usually refer to these 3 as the EX1 trio. They share that same on Digivolve effect, where you can check the top 3, add a level 6 machine to your hand, trash the rest. These are great digging tools, they're great consistency tools, all around just very solid cards, with the inheritables of Blocker, Reboot, and Popping Digimon play cost 5 or less, respectively, on each one. Now, the pop 5 cost or less is, again, kind of a meta-relevant call, where some formats it's going to be better than others. I do think that this is going to be a format where that extra removal is extremely helpful, especially off of a blitzed in Machinedramon. So definitely make sure you have your 1 copy of MetalMame. I don't think you'll regret it. The other Reboot inheritable we're playing is actually going to be the brand new structured deck Andromon. Now, this Andromon is 7 to play, 7,000 DP, 3 to Digivolve, has a when Digivolving effect to D-Digivolve one of your opponent's Digimon, and again, that generic Reboot inheritable. Now, that on Digivolve to D-Digivolve ability is not completely new. It's very similar to the ability that we've had on BT8 MetalGreymon for a little while already. And obviously that ability is very powerful. Having that ability for 1 memory less at the cost of not being able to pop something is still very much worth it, in my opinion. If your opponent attacked early and has a suspended body in play, this can potentially allow you to swing over that body if they are not playing around it. So the D-Digivolve shenanigans are always going to be super, super nice to have. So 1 copy of the new Andromon. We're also playing 1 copy of the new starter deck MetalGreymon. Now, I've actually considered playing 2 copies of this MetalGreymon. He is definitely worth it, I think. He's 8 to play, 8,000 DP, 3 to Digivolve, and has Blocker. So he's got that nice blocker ability, again, while in play. This deck is definitely starting to pivot more on the defensive side, so having all of these abilities to block early on between HoverEspimon, Guardromon, and MetalGreymon definitely gives us some early defenses that the deck really needs to help keep a lot of the more aggressive decks off until we can set up our big turns. It also has a security +1 inheritable, which is generic. So, again, very nice to have there. I do have quite a few security plus inheritables in this list, and MetalGreymon is probably the best of the group. So, again, I could consider running more copies of him over something like maybe, for instance, Volcanomon, but just to have the extra name has also proven to be pretty valuable. Being able to tuck as many of these security inheritables as possible on a single Digivolve just to make sure we get as many security checks as we can. So that's going to be my reasoning there for only a single copy. We are still playing our 2 copies of BT8 MetalGreymon with that same on Digivolve ability to D-Digivolve one of your opponent's Digimon, pop something 3,000 DP or less, and of course one of the best inheritables in the game, attacking unsuspended Digimon. We will never go below 2 copies of this card unless something absolutely crazy happens. This MetalGreymon is pretty much irreplaceable in my opinion. Now back to another meta call. As I mentioned, we are in a very aggressive meta, so I'm opting to play 2 copies again of BT9 Megadramon. 8 to play, 8,000 DP, 4 to Digivolve. On Digivolve, deletes an opponent's Digimon or Tamer, play cost 3 or less. On attack, does the same thing, deletes a Digimon or Tamer, 3 cost or less. Now this, as I mentioned, is going to be a meta that is going to be full of small bodies. But not just are we going to have a meta that's full of small bodies, we're also going to have a lot of Tamer targets. There's a lot of 3-cost Tamers running around between Greymon, Fenrir-Lugomon, D-Brigade. There's going to be a lot of potential Tamers that we're going to want to be popping with Megadramon. So he is definitely back to 2. I think this card is probably at the highest value it's ever been at, outside of maybe Cross-Art meta. So 2 copies, I definitely think he has earned his spot there. As I mentioned, I am playing a single copy of Volcanomon, just for, again, that nice generic security attack +1, as well as another blocker while in play. we are going to be still playing a single copy of MetalTyrannomon. I wanted to lean a little bit away from swinging into opposing Digimon, but this is still a fantastic inheritable, but I did cut him down from 2 copies just to include more generic security checks. Against certain decks, obviously the extra trash effect is going to be more valuable, but for this list, I am opting to run a single copy of MetalTyrannomon. We're going to be playing our single copy of the Piercing MetalGreymon from EX1. Not much has changed there. When attacking, pops things, gives us Piercing, super nice. We are still playing our DP boost in the form of BT1 MetalGreymon for that nice plus 3000 DP inheritable. And finally, wrapping up our level 5 cyborgs, we're going to have our single copy of EX1 Megadramon. Again, another generic security attack, plus as long as it's a machine on top. And on play deletes up to 2 of your opponent's Digimon 3000 DP or less. That can come in handy, as I mentioned, with all of those small bodies. Alright, that's going to do it for our level 5, so we are playing a total of 15. Moving right along, we're going to go ahead and get into our Megas. This format, I'm going to be playing, at least to begin with, 2 copies of BT11 Machinedramon. I felt like 2 copies is pretty much just about right. It's still a great setup card, but I'm definitely leaning a little more away from this card just because Chaosdramon is such an incredibly powerful card this format, as is EX1 Machinedramon, for a multitude of different reasons. But this is still a fantastic card, of course. There's still great combo potential, especially with Attack of the Heavy Mobile Digimon, being able to swing in with some extra security checks. If it dies, we can play out our Machinedramon from our hand, potentially get Attack of the Heavy Mobile played, get even more aggression, and then swing for game if we do happen to have, for instance, like a Mercurymon or another level 6 to play from our hand. So lots of big combo potential there. So I am currently playing 2 copies. And to complement it, we are also, of course, playing 2 copies of EX1 Machinedramon, our good old boy who is going to have DP reduction immunity, which is great if there are still any Shine Greymon players, or now we're also going to have a lot of Yellow Vaccine running around, a lot of decks that are still going to be doing DP reduction, so having that immunity can still be valuable against certain decks. And of course, we're still going to be playing copies of EX3 Chaosdramon. So Chaosdramon, of course, is still one of the, if not the best boss monster the deck has access to, having Destruction Immunity, Bounce Immunity, and Tuck Immunity. Now, you still, of course, have to watch out for, again, the new Yellow Vaccine archetype running around with BT14 Andromon that can tuck them into security, but, you know, what are you going to do? Nothing is perfect. Easily hits with an extra security check from Sunarizamon with Hopmon and Inheritables, as long as we have one of our Analogmen in play, so definitely good, definitely still playing those 3 copies. And I'm actually down to a single copy of Chaosdramon X-Antibody. Now, this is subject to change. I don't know if I'm going to keep him at just a single copy, but he is a spot that I found myself willing to cut in order to fit in some other cards that I felt like the deck really needed. So I am only playing the single copy of Chaosdramon X-Antibody for the time being, but of course he is still a fantastic card and a great way to close the game out, just by digivolving onto something on a follow-up turn and being able to smash through a ton more security by adding a ton more of extra inheritables. Next up, of course, we have our 4 copies of Analogman. Unlikely that that will ever change anytime soon. I think Analogman should always be a 4 of in Machinedramon lists these days. Being able to set up our unbreakable barricade with a ton of redirects is, of course, going to be super great. There is, however, another new tamer that I've been trying out and really getting good results with, and that is a single copy of Ishida from the new MetalGreymon Ace structure deck. Now, I actually got this idea from someone in my Discord. Big thanks for that, for tossing that idea out there. I think this card is super fantastic, and I've been seeing some other lists popping up running this card at 1 as well. Ishida is 4 to play, is a memory setter, which this deck is always thankful to have, and has an all turns effect, where if an effect trashes a card in your hand, by suspending this tamer, gain a memory. Now, the big interaction to keep in mind here, there is actually quite a few cards in this deck that will trigger this ability, but the big one, of course, is its interaction with Analogman, whereby having Ishida in play along with Analogman at the start of the turn, as long as we have a single cyborg to discard to Analogman, Matt is going to be able to start us at a bare minimum of 5 memory, letting us start at 3, go up by 1 for Analog, and another 1 for Matt. Now, this 5 memory is a very important threshold for a couple of different reasons. One of the biggest ones being that it lets us go all the way from our rookies into our mega level Digimon in a single turn very consistently. As long as we have a rookie already in play, we can evo for 2 into one of our champions. Then we can digivolve into some of our level 5s, and then immediately we can go straight into our new Megas, allowing us to set our fields back up. So Ishida, I think, is definitely a sleeper card in this deck. I think it is really, really powerful. Having the ability to go all the way to 5 consistently every single turn just with 2 Tamers is super, super great to have. So highly recommend trying out at least a single copy of Matt. I don't think you need more than that. I think just the one of is probably fine, but yeah, definitely give him a try if you haven't already. Now I am playing a total of 4 copies of Black Memory Boost with that really nice new Machinedramon themed art. Not really any super duper reason. This is actually another area that I could see potentially cutting one of these memory boosts, maybe for another level 6 or even more level 4s or level 3s. But currently I am playing 3 just because it gives us really nice, again, combo potential if we're going to be on a turn where we want to try to be bursting down our opponent for a ton of damage. That extra 2 memory is able to be used immediately for one of our hybrids. It gives us memory to be able to go use our Attack of the Heavy Mobile Digimon. So I'm going to be starting at least the format by playing a total of 4 copies. And the very last card in the deck is, of course, as mentioned, the 2 copies of Attack of the Heavy Mobile Digimon. Now, Attack of the Heavy Mobile I've had, again, in and out of different lists over the different formats. I'm currently back on it, and now that we know how the next couple of formats are going to look, I don't see that changing. This card becomes even more fantastic once we hit BT14 with the advent of Supreme Connection. So I do think Attack of the Heavy Mobile Digimon is going to be at an all-time premium as the next couple of sets roll around, especially now that we're going to be able to lean a little bit more heavily back into using EX1 Machinedramon as one of our primary boss monsters once again. Being able to play him for only 4 memory off Supreme Connection is pretty awesome. Cannot wait for that. Now, before we do wrap things up, there was one other thing that I wanted to talk about very briefly, and that is going to be the existence of a newly available D-Brigade package. Thanks to some new cards in BT14, specifically a new Commandromon as well as High Commandromon, D-Brigade actually has a pretty solid self-contained package that you can now actually play in your level 3 and 4 slots. So we're going to quickly talk about each of the 4 cards that I think are the best for this particular package. We have our BT14 Commandromon. On play, reveal the top 5 cards of your deck. Add 1 card with the D-Brigade or Digipolice trait among them to your hand. Return the rest to the top or bottom of the deck in any order, which is super, super great. The fact that you don't have to bottom deck the cards and can return them to the top means you can actually, at a bare minimum, rearrange the next 5 cards you are going to draw, making this card a very nice consistency tool. It also has an inheritable. All turns, when this Digimon would leave the battle area other than by one of your effects, by deleting one of your other Digimon with the D-Brigade trait, prevent it from leaving play. Now this is really great because, as I mentioned, now that we have the new Yellow Vaccine archetype running around, being able to keep our Machinedramon stacks in play without having to worry about them getting hit by Andromon is definitely nice. It's also going to be great in general just to help us get 1 extra layer of protection. But that's really not all. We also, of course, have our High Commandromon, which is only 4 to play, 4000 DP. Has a 1 attacking effect. Look at the top 3 cards of your deck. You can play a card with D-Brigade or Digipolice trait among them and a cost of 3 or less among them without paying the cost. The rest go to the bottom and has that same protection inheritable. So these 2, as I mentioned, are going to be that extra layer of protection, but we also have the option of some extra aggression thanks to EX3 Chaosdramon. Chaosdramon is 5 to play, 4000 DP, and actually has inherent jamming, which is very nice to do. You know that early aggression, I'm always for that. And it also has a very, very powerful inheritable. When you play another Digimon with D-Brigade in its traits, it gets Rush. And to complement that particular inheritable, we're also going to be playing, in this case anyways, I recommend playing copies of 2-drop Vanilla Commandromon as, again, just basically another version of Hybrid for game, where you can play it for 2 and then rush in to finish the game as long as you have Chaosdramon in the inheritables. It's actually kind of cool because with Chaosdramon X-Antibody, if you build for it, you can actually tuck Chaosdramon from your trash onto your stack and then basically get that inheritable free access even if it wasn't already there. So you can then rush in a Commandromon for a game. So super, super cool. This is, as mentioned, I've had some kind of mixed feelings about how this package runs. It's definitely worth considering. It's going to be a little bit matchup dependent. It's a little bit less aggressive, in my opinion, than running things like Sunarizamon. It's going to be a little bit slower than playing things like Guardromon, but it is robust. It does have its own kind of little self-contained engines. The Commandromon consistency definitely is worth looking into. Definitely don't sleep on that. But yeah, in the meantime, this is going to do it for this Machinedramon deck profile. You know I'm going to keep you guys updated with every new format as it comes. with meta shifts and changes to my particular list. I still think Machinedramon is slowly becoming one of the better placed decks in the format. It is really great at staging off a lot of these more aggressive decks, as long as you are able to make it to your level 6s before, of course, they rush you down. It's got a pretty decent matchup into D-Brigade, as long as you know how to play around some of their Digivolve effects. And yeah, that's going to about do it. Thank you all so much for joining me for another deck profile. If you like the content, feel free to like the video and subscribe to the channel so you do not miss my next upload. With that, I am an avid herpetologist. I hope you all have a great rest of your day, and I will see you all next time.